Hi, Alan Stratton from Woodturning. For this week's project, this will be a combination of a 3D printed project and a segmented project. Where's the 3D printing? Well, over a year ago, I saw a Labyrinth maze in Thingiverse that you could 3D print. I printed one, but I'm a wood turner, and it's got to have a little bit more pizzazz than just a 3D printed object. I want it to have some juice. So this combines a wood turning project with a 3D printed maze. Now this one is custom. I had to write some software for it, but it has a nice maze. In this case, an easy one. In this case, harder. Or I can make it killer if I need to and if I want to. This one actually is nice because it is a triple start, which keeps things balanced as you move in. If I can get the key right here. I did say this was an easy one, right? There we go. Got it. So let's make this Labyrinth maze for this week's project.
When I first saw these 3D printed Labyrinth mazes on Thingiverse, I knew I would not be content until I could print one. But not only print one, I needed to design my own and incorporate it into a wood turning project. So I pulled out my computer and wrote a program to design a maze. By inputting parameters, I can make it start 1, 2, 3, or more times, repeating the maze in sections. I can specify the diameter and height and the path size, then lay out the maze on the screen. From there, I take the output of my program and paste it into another program that can generate a 3D object. This is OpenScad. From here, I can generate the maze tube and guide tube into the Prusa slicer. From the 3D slicer, I printed the maze and guide tubes on a Prusa MK3S Plus printer. With PLA plastic filament, this printing takes about 4 hours for this maze. Out in the shop, I made 5 segment rings, mainly of cherry. 4 have a single walnut segment for a spiral for visual interest. These are 8 segments per ring. Then I made a couple more to make sure I would have enough. Then, using my bandsaw setup that I have described in recent videos, I sliced each ring into 3. This saved me from having to mill the wood thinner and then have to glue up 3 times as many rings. This saved a lot of time and wood. I glued solid cherry rings to faceplates and plugged the holes in the end rings with a laminated walnut plug. At this point, I want to bore a hole in one end ring for the guide ring. A little bit ago, I purchased a metal lathe with a DRO, a digital readout. A metal lathe can be used for wood and metal. It does not care. A metal lathe is best at straight line precision work. I would hate trying to cut a smooth curve on a metal lathe. Still, it excels at this operation. I can precisely bore a hole to fit the guide ring. The DRO enables me to return exactly to a previous position after trying my fit. I'm still learning how best to use the metal lathe. I glued up all the rings with a walnut segment into a stack, with each ring offset only by about 1/4 inch at the perimeter, rather than halfway for a traditional brick lay. Between this and the thin segment rings, I expected a fairly flat continuous spiral. It is not symmetrical, since there is interest in asymmetry. I cut off the tips of the segment rings with a large bowl gouge. Then, with a Forstner bit, I bored out a hole as deep as I could, but with a bit one size smaller than the maze rings, since I did not have a bit of the exact size needed. Since I could not bore completely through the stack, I then cut a small tenon on the cylinder, then sawed off the faceplate. Now, with the cylinder mounted to the chuck jaws, I can finish boring through the stack. There's not much further. With a large box scraper, I can enlarge the center hole to accept the maze tube. Then enlarge the end a little bit more to accept the guide tube that will be epoxied into this cylinder. I decided I need another tenon on the opposite end for my pattern, so I cut another tenon. Then flipped the cylinder around and trimmed the end smooth before gluing on the faceplate with 2 rings on it. After the glue dried, I parted off the faceplate. Now I can get serious about shaping the exterior. I do not have a lot of wood to work with. I probably should have made my rings bigger. A simple shape will have to do. A rubber stopper on my live center prevents damage while it provides a bit of insurance. Once I am into solid wood, my shear cutting with my bowl gouge provides piles of slender shavings. After a thorough hand sanding, I reach for the shellac friction polish. This is my favorite for smaller projects where I can apply finish while on the lathe and may need to blend back into previously finished sections as the project progresses. A plus is that I can rub it at high speed to improve the sheen. The rings for the bottom section are still on a faceplate. This has a mortise to accept the maze tube. Off screen, I made a double tenon so I can mount the 2 pieces together. I'd like to do this so that I can visualize the entire project. This is easier together instead of separate pieces, but no glue. They have to be separate at the end. Then sand and finish the pieces at the joint. Now for a little bit more cleanup work on the bottom part that will hold the guide tube, and sand and apply shellac friction polish to this piece. That is it for my Labyrinth maze and segmented wood turning project. The 3D printer did its part. I simply, provided the software glue to make that happen. Then the segmented wood turning provided the visual appeal that the 3D printer cannot do. I would not be able to create a maze like this solely on the lathe, and I cannot make a maze as nice as this one on a 3D printer. I think I have the best of both worlds and can make the maze as frustratingly difficult or as easy as I want to. This one is very easy. My granddaughter is an expert at solving these mazes. She will find this one way too easy. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, and tell your friends. I appreciate your comments and questions. Every week I make a new wood turning video and add it to my website. Please wear your full face shield for safety anytime the lathe is running. I will see you next week with another wood turning video. Meanwhile, take time to count your blessings.